Hello, everybody. This is Wasteland Strongbeard. I watched the rest of the series, so I'm just going to do a review for the rest of the entire series instead of doing an episode by episode breakdown because I feel like I need to have more pictures and stuff to do that, and unfortunately, I just don't have the time to do that, but I would like to do a quick review for you. So, in general, Uh, it's the same stuff. It's the exact same stuff as I mentioned before. The cinematography is phenomenal. The production value is very high. It's almost like a movie that's been split up into 8 different pieces. The costuming is very, very good. It's not exactly perfect sometimes. Some of the guns I didn't recognize. Like the Ghoul's gun, I think that's the Blade Runner gun. I'm not 100% sure because it makes a different noise. It makes more like a bloop, like a M79 grenade launcher. So I'm not quite sure. The sound effects are wrong, which is throwing me off. I know I'm being maybe too nitpicky, but it's throwing me off a little bit. Yeah, let's see. The acting in general was decent. The casting was decent. There was a couple spots where things seemed out of place and forced, or like they were callbacks that they were trying so desperately to make, but they didn't quite line up. Like the kid in the fridge. That's a Fallout 4 side quest. You find a ghoul kid in a fridge, and then he tries to find his family. But the whole point is that he can't get out, right? Because the fridge, hopefully everybody knows this, but nobody had to find it out firsthand. But a fridge, it locks. The the vacuum pressure locks the fridge, so you can't get out. Obviously, the fridge was quite old, and like the seals weren't there. Like you could see that there was holes in the back top of the fridge where the kid was inside. But I'm wondering why the blast didn't knock the fridge over. Because a blast that big, like something to make a crater that's, how even deep is that? 50 feet? 100 feet? That's going to have a blast wave that's going to knock you off your feet for sure. So that felt kind of contrived. Um, I also feel like it was heavily borrowed from the storyline. Some of the aspects seem like they were borrowed from Fallout itself, callbacks, that kind of thing, for different missions. But like the main first episode mission was just so jammed up to me. It didn't make any sense. And then at the end, it makes more sense. But how do I say this? It makes more sense at the end, but then when you think about how everyone tries to justify, like, the ends justify the means argument, it's like everybody uses violence to justify the means. They justify killing other people to get what they want, whatever it is. One of them wants the security of a vault, so he blows up shit. Oh yeah, spoilers. I didn't say that yet. So in case people didn't hear it, another spoilers alert. So the vault guy, he blows up Shady Sands because of the threat, quote unquote, that they had. It all seems a little murky what exact threat they posed, maybe because they were repopulating and organizing and they had apparently 34,000 survivors, which is, that's an accomplishment in itself. And that turns into NCR a lot like it does in the games, right? With what's her name? The girl that you in Fallout 1 you save her, and then in Fallout 2, you meet her as an old lady, and she's like the leader of the NCR, and she thanks your ancestor because you're the chosen one, and apparently he had like a whole village worth of kids. You know, teach his own, I guess, when you're the chosen one and you save the world. But yeah, Tandy, I think Tandy's her name. So they built on that, which I thought was great. They built on the Brotherhood of Steel and kind of made them like they had their tech hungry asshole thing going. I'm a little weirded out by the copters though, the vertibirds. If they can only hold 2 people, they're pretty much useless in a combat situation. Like if you have 2 pilots and 2 people in power armor and that's all you can carry, maybe a door gunner, because you only ever see 2 guys in power armor in them, right? And then there might be a couple other people. Maybe there's a lift requirement. Like the vertibird's kind of like, what is it? I might be butchering the call sign or whatever the model, but what the V-22 Osprey vehicle, vertical takeoff and landing. They made that way back, what, the 70s or 80s. They developed that thing, and it's great for getting in and out of trouble. The only problem is the fuel. It burns a crazy amount of fuel. The Harrier jet does a similar thing. It can take off more vertically, and like it takes a lot of fuel for them to be able to do that because you're fighting gravity and gravity's always there. But anyways, I'm digressing a bit. Most of the weapon design, most of the equipment design was on point. I love the little blips and bloops and noises from the Pip Boys. The acting was okay. The Brotherhood guy, I just felt like he was medicated the whole time, if you know what I mean. Like he was high on something, because there was just something about him that he just thought everything was kind of a joke. But then when he met the girl, he's like, "Oh, okay, it's not a joke anymore." But then I don't know. They kept going back and forth with what they wanted to do and what they said they're going to do. And I guess that's how people are. You know, they're like, "Oh, hey, Wasteland, are you going to whatever, Bobby's big party this weekend?" I'll be like, "Yeah, I don't know. You know, we'll see how my night goes, but yeah, I'll probably be there." And then the week goes on, and then you get invited to like 2 more parties. I was a moderately popular person back in the day, not super popular. I knew some very popular people and used to hang out with them, and slowly started to despise them and their ways of using people because they weren't really good people all the time. But I learned a lot because I was not very social most of the time. But I learned to be a little bit more social and how to speak a little better. So, like we all take the route. We all travel the wasteland our own way. So, but in general, yeah, there was something a friend of mine brought up. The one shot kind of thing was is kind of annoying. Like so many times that there was all this hype built up, and like somebody shoots something with a pistol once or twice, and it's like, oh, it's over. It's like that's not my experience in Fallout. Like maybe the rats outside of the vault or something. Most things take a few shots. Like I don't want to push reality into the game world too much, but like a 10mm is fairly powerful. It's significantly more powerful than a 9mm. So yeah, like something that smaller, I guess, would make sense. Like a smaller enemy. But there was also speaking of guns and armor, there was such insane plot armor around the main characters, especially the Vault girl Lucy. It was absolutely insane. She should be dead like I don't even know how many times over at this point. It felt like 20 times. It felt like every time she got in trouble and her life was at risk, she's just like, well, the vault does it a different way, and you guys are not being very nice. And then everyone just like accommodates her. It felt like a woke thing. I know everyone's just absolutely sick of this like overhyped woke stuff. Of course, respect people. Of course, try to understand them. Of course, try to find a spot for them. Try to help people find their purpose in life. Of course, do these things. But like I don't mind if the female is the protagonist in a show. It's cool. I'm totally good with that as long as it's done right and it espouses competency. Like of course there's going to be luck, but like competency and stick to itness. Maybe she's like more being helpful. I don't know. Trusting. But every single time she trusted somebody and they double crossed her, she still walked away. She got her finger cut off by the ghoul as a penalty for biting his finger off, which I thought was kind of extreme. Like, you have any idea where that finger's been? You're gonna get gangrene in your mouth just from licking that thing. Not to mention getting ghoul blood in your mouth. Like, that was a lot. I can understand he's kind of gangrene and maybe it just kind of was already half broken, but I was like, whoa, that's taking it up a few notches. But of course, her life's at risk. People will do extreme things when they think that their time is rapidly ending. So that I'm okay with, right? Like desperate times, desperate measures. But then she gets her finger cut off as a retaliation from the ghoul. I don't know why he doesn't have a name. There's other ghouls, but okay, it's kind of racist, right? It's like the Brotherhood guy or the diaper guy. Oh, we'll get to him in a second. So, like, he should have a name. Like, they did say his name quite a few times, but why do they call him the ghoul in the show? Anyways, it's a missed opportunity. It'd be like, I forget or he doesn't want people to know his name because he was like the TV cowboy, and everyone's like, "Oh, do a trick for me" or whatever, and now he's all pissed off because he's a ghoul. He's got to be medicated all the time. I get that because I take medication too to dull the pain and dull the pain of life, and it's necessary, or else what are you saying? Strongbeard's not the most friendliest of folk, but yeah. So it's just she gets her finger cut off, and then she gets sold to a couple of drug addicts. The ghoul sells her for drugs so that he can stay alive because he ran out of his mystical longevity drug, which I'm not sure if that was ever covered in Fallout. I guess it could be just about anything, but like as ghouls go, like he's in astonishing shape for being a ghoul. Like he's missing his nose, but aside from that, he's in very good shape for being 200 something years old. More than that, because it's after NCR, right? So NCR I think was 200 years. I don't know. My dates might be off. Don't quote me on that. I don't have the resource in front of me. I'm just doing this all from memory. Top of the morning, because so my first thought as I woke up is because I just powered through them, and I'm dancing around my grievance again. So they're gonna sell her for organs, and it's supposed to be funny that the robot's like all cheerful about taking her organs. I'm trying to figure out who wants these organs and if they understand compatibility and like why they're cutting her up right away. I guess there's an order for her organs. Like maybe that was another bounty that just wasn't talked about. It would make a certain amount of sense because she's a vault dweller. She wouldn't be irradiated, similar to the effect of how super mutants, when they dip them in the FEV, they want them to be clean for radiation. Because the lore, if you're not aware, is that if if you are irradiated, the more irradiated you are, the crappier of a super mutant you become. Like they're dumber and they're not as big. It's very obvious type things. But if they're a vault dweller, then they have the capability of being even smarter than a human. Is Fallout canon? I don't know if that was cybernetics. There's one or two specific super mutants that were extremely smart, and we're not talking about the Doctor from Fallout 4 because he was a human originally. Remember, but he kept his intelligence, so he must have been not irradiated. But it makes sense because he was part of the what's it called? I'm gonna have to look it up. All right. Yeah, it was just a second for you. I love being able to pause this. Not having video makes this so much easier for me to edit. Side point. So it's the Institute. Now, they're like offshoots of MIT, right? And a bunch of smart guys and engineers and like the synths. They call them synths, but really what they are is human clones with a part in them. Like, I forget what it's called, but it's like a behavioral implant, similar to maybe if you were to compare it to Star Wars with the restraining bolt on droids, but not as more sophisticated. Maybe reminds me of something in Shadowrun that they had that you could just program, like the SimSense stars. You just program them to do stuff and they'll do it, which gets a little sinister. Yeah, you probably already went there, didn't you, you perv? Anyways, so there's a lot of things in this show. Like the visuals are phenomenal. The visuals are on point almost every single second. The slow-mo I thought was interesting. It kind of reminded me of VATS or something in combat. Plus, it let you see it, which must have been very difficult for the actors. Doing a large group combat thing with slow-mo and getting everybody to line up right is actually quite difficult because there's more scrutiny when it's slow-mo. And they did a very good job. The music was almost always on point. There was a couple spots along the episodes that it was a little out of sequence. It felt like it was just a little, I don't know, but in general very good. The writing feels very, very rushed, and I realize that's part of it. Spoiler alert, the girl's dad gets quote unquote kidnapped. Well, he was kidnapped, right? But there's just so much to unpack with that somehow he's found the miracle of everlasting life, which I don't remember that being canon at all. I don't remember that being in the whole thing, the Bob's Buds or whatever. And then what doesn't make any sense to me is he's like, oh yeah, I found a way to make people last forever. You just outlast them. But he's a fucking robo-brain Roomba in Vault 31 or whatever. And I'm like, what? That doesn't make any sense. So 31's supposed to be the scientific vault that cowboy actor turned ghoul guy's wife ends up facilitating, and she basically to get the funding, she talked to a bunch of like militant types about, hey, if you guys buy in, you could do your own crazy experiments. And it's like, it's so sadistic, but it does fit with the Fallout canon type stuff, so that does make sense. But how are they living forever? That part doesn't make sense to me. Maybe I was tired when I watched that part, but I was like, all right, they had pods. So like, are they going in the pod and like every time they go to sleep or they wake up, they're like, oh, I just got to like do a couple things, then I go back in the pod. So they're not really that old, they just go into suspended animation when they don't need to do something important, or did they have clones? Because that's always an option, right? Like you have the main entity, and then you make clones from that entity, and then they fulfill roles and tasks out in the world. It can get very, very messy. I ran a Shadowrun game. Was it Shadowrun? Or I don't know if it got to this point, but there was going to be a point where clones were fighting themselves to see the dominancy, because there was a large group of them, sort of like stormtroopers, and they just arbitrarily decided that there should be two factions of them, and then they started fighting each other. It was like the most arbitrary thing, and they went for it here with the Vault Dwellers, but how the hell are they lasting so long? That's very confusing. So I'm fairly certain they're going to try and tie in the ghouls with this and say they got like a crappier version of the serum. They didn't explain it. They were trying to wrap up the main quest line, but there you have the Overseer, who is apparently like hundreds of years old. And like I said, I must have missed exactly how he's pulling that off. If it's a drug or some kind of hyperbaric chamber thing or cold plunges, who knows? Who knows what he's doing? But overall, it's a very interesting show. The one shot, one kill, everybody gets the headshots when they need to. That was I think that's like a VATS callback. But there were so many times that there was other people that just had absolutely horrible aim. Like the perimeter machine guns in the first episode, I think it was, they were so bad. And I mean, those things hit me every single time in Fallout 2. Just about. So, did he screw up their targeting? That would have been a good thing for him to do. Say, hey, I'm a smart scientist, guy, so I'm just going to, like, make them target stuff that's not there or something. That would have been something he could have do. But, like, he kind of, the guy died. His whole reason for leaving, or him getting caught and then him running away, I don't see him just running away. I don't see them just letting scientists, like, oh, hey, you want to go to this place and this restricted area? Cool. You don't need any permissions. I would think that the Enclave would just be, you need permissions to go take a poop. Like, that's the way I always saw the Enclave, just overly fascist and controlling. Maybe they gave him privileges because he was a doctor, but like they wouldn't let him just wander around. They wouldn't let him go off base without an escort. Like he's a prime resource for the continuation of their whatever, their calling, right? Another faction. Like they had plans for him, and they gave him seemingly intense facilities and everything. So yeah, the whole show, I mean, it's watchable, but yeah, the plot armor on the main characters, it felt like Star Wars the last few episodes, like with Rey. She gave me like Wicked Rey vibes a few times. Like was it the Gulpers or the Salamander or Gecko? I forget what it is. Maybe it's the Gulper, I think. They're like way better, or sorry, way bigger. They're more, instead of like a salamander, they're more like axolotls, I think is how you say it. Those salamanders that have their gills on the outside, and they're actually kind of cute looking, but then they made these ones like insane, and they're supposed to be genetically engineered, right? Like that's the whole reason for the one vault and all those people being mutants, is that they were messing around with mutations. And I guess they just tested everybody. I don't understand how the guy got one eye if he was like an original descendant of a vault dweller. Like, are they putting some FEV in the water, or they're just mixing stuff together and they're like, oh, hey, let's see what happens with this. Oh, look, I got an ear on my head. Like, That didn't make much sense to me. That looked very contrived by somebody who doesn't understand science. You wouldn't just have an extra ear on your head. Like that mouse that they tested to grow human tissue, they grew an ear on the side of the mouse's body as a replacement mouse. I don't remember if they even gave the mouse a name, but this is something they did years ago. I think it was a callback to that, but it was a bit weird. It's just a bit weird overall. It seemed very contrived. Like, why would they test it on people like that? Like, oh, this person's more resistant to radiation by 10%, but now they look like a total freak. I don't know. It's a very weird thing, and then they're not allowed to leave by choice. They're like, no, you're staying here. You're one of us now. We tested you. You're gonna mutate. You're gonna go a finger out of your butt or something. Like, I don't understand the parameters of these tests. The results seem very random and kind of stupid for the most part. And then she gets in a huge conflict with them. She goes in the place they said not to go. She assaults multiple people after they try to stop her, which, you know, it is their thing. They're trying to control her because they don't know what she's doing. She fights back, obviously. And then, as her punishment, they're like, oh, yeah, well, we're just going to have to kick you out and give you 2 weeks rations and food and send you on your way in a real polite manner. It's like, what? Will they really do that? That seemed very stretched. The axolotl, like, swallowing her after how many failed attempts? She was tied to a stick. She was bait in the water, and it somehow screwed that up. And I didn't get the whole thing that Ghoul was doing. Why wouldn't he just wait for the axolotl thing? Gulper, I don't know what. Gulpers in Fallout 76 look quite different. They look very different, actually. That was not canon. I think there was a picture of one, or that showed one, but then it showed the other kind, which maybe they had those somewhere in the game and I just don't remember, but it seemed new. It didn't seem like a gulper. Gulpers are green, and they walk around bipedally, and they're like a salamander band. The gulpers are kind of like geckos, right? From Fallout, whatever, 1, 2, Golden Gecko. That was 1 and 2, right? But they were supposed to be, due to the experimentation of Vault 31? No. Whatever. No, Vault 4. Vault 4. I'm trying to get the numbers all right. And then she was getting swallowed, and the thing has like fingers inside its throat to pull you in, which is absolutely terrifying to think of. And then he pulls her out with the power armor, which maybe, but she would be in very, very rough shape. If you think of, if you were a giant and you put your hands around her legs, and then you put your other hand around the top half of her and just started pulling, that's going to put a lot of strain on the midsection, and it might just pop. So that part I thought was weird. It made more sense for him to just use the crushing power of the hand on the thing's like head or something. He used that when those thieves were trying to take his armor. Somehow he got his arm inside, he got his left arm inside the right arm portion of the power armor and managed to bend it back to grab the guy by the head and crush his head, like with just absolute massive strength. But if his grip is that good, all he'd have to do is like crush the thing's head. Like, that would have made sense, but then he's pulling on her. That's almost the worst way. Like, maybe after the thing's dead and it's not fighting back anymore. There was a lot of those things. And, like, there is plot armor, we know, but she's barely getting scathed. Oh, man, I totally jumped from my whole thing. So I forgot to finish off the organ harvesting thing. There's just so many things that are flooding my mind. I'm trying to organize them. So the organ harvesting is from druggies that apparently have a drug lab that nobody bothers because they're under protection of another faction called the Government. So I'm not quite sure how fresh that is, but it didn't seem very fresh to me. And that was a bad joke. So, ugh. So she's in there to get her organs harvested. Sorry, I can't talk. Right away, even though there's a whole bunch of people in the deli section or something. They're in there. It's a I think it's a super duper mart or something. And they're in these glass cases. And the buttons are set up to open different doors, which I thought, okay, that'd be a fair bit of wiring, I guess, to put them all in the same thing. But then how do they open them individually? That wasn't very clear to me. They were just like, oh, this button opened all of this and that button opened all of that. And then they had the feral ghouls who immediately went right for the junkies and pretty much left her alone until the end. But the thing that really gets me is if she's there and they're immediately harvesting her organs, why did they fix her finger? Why did they bother with that? That just seems like wasted energy. Like the robot will go, "Tally ho, old bean! It's time to cut you open and get those fun organs out of you." You know, like why would he bother? Why would he delay? He's in such a rush to do the organ harvesting. Why would he stop and fix the finger? Obviously, plot armor, right? It was her pointy finger for shooting, right? Among other things. Oh, yeah, we better give that back to her somehow. Just sort of, make the robot do that. It seemed very, very forced. There's a lot of plot things in this show that seem very forced, but there's a lot of things that kind of flowed naturally and made sense. So them finding out that Vault 32, something went very, very wrong there, and that I'm trying to figure out who the hell cleaned it up, because ex gatekeeper coward cousin of Lucy guy, whatever his name is, him and Lucy's brother go in there, and then the next day, it's all cleaned up. There's like fresh paint, all the bodies are gone, and then Lucy's brother, he's there pushing the plot armor thing too. He's like, "Oh yeah, you cleaned it up really well." The overseer should have been like, "When were you in here?" But I guess she already knew because she's following him, and she's almost letting him know that there's something else going on to make him scared, I guess. That seems like a very tight rope to walk. Because if he went back in and said, "Yeah, I was here the other day and all the other vault dwellers, like, killed each other and died trying to get the door open. There was something very wrong that happened here." That's all he has to say. And reasonably, people would believe him, but seemed like plot armor again. So, but in general, I mean, the wide-eyed naivety is done very well by the Lucy character. Her eyes are very big, and she's very adorable, kind of do-gooder type person. But she's also, like, quite sociopathic. In the first episode, she cuts a guy's head off with a ripper, chainsaw thing, right? Like, she cuts his head off, his freaking head. That's not a regular thing. That should have grossed her out. And then it's like, "Oh, nope. I'm a strong, independent woman, and I can cut off a dead man's head if I need to." It's like, this is like a girl power thing. Like, that seemed very forced to me. It's just, I don't know. I don't know if that's reasonable at all, but yeah. is kind of all over the place. Like it's almost like the confusion is built in to make us feel confusion, like Lucy would feel about the world. But she's just kind of like, I don't know. She's like a do-gooder with high charisma and high luck. Like her luck's like a 10. If you look at her as a character, her luck is very, very high. She just manages to slip away, just manages to say the right thing, even though she doesn't know what the hell's going on. So I never really played a super high luck character, and well, Fallout 2 is the one I played the most. I think I played one that had a higher luck once, but not like maximum. That'd be interesting. But in general, the acting was very well done. Just the Brotherhood, there seems like there's something wrong with that whole makeup there. So they have a blimp like the Pridwin out there. They seem to have an endless supply of vertibirds, but the vertibirds don't stay. The vertibirds didn't soften up the target before they came in that well. Like at the end, there was the big battle, but the big battle was kind of like, what? Like, it was a bit odd. It seemed like the people that, what's her face, the antagonist, I guess, the cold fusion scientist lady. It seemed like what, she got a bunch of raiders together so that she could do what she needed to do, but then they're like loyal somehow, and then they have metal armor, and they don't look like a bunch of crazed killers. But if she had people with heavy equipment, couldn't she have just been like, oh, the door's open now, everybody's eating cake, let's get them all looped up on like what's the drug, like Daddy-O or something, and it like lowers your strength and your combat ability? But they didn't do anything like that. She went in with obvious raiders that obviously would have been pointed out pretty much immediately. And that seemed contrived to me, that she's trying to get back with Shady Sands. But I don't know. The Vault 4, I pretty much called it when they were like, oh, everybody's getting together. I was like, what is this, like some kind of orgy thing or something? You know, everybody's got a big smile. Oh, come with us, new girl. We're going to go do something fun. You know, like it was just... And then they all pull their shirts off. It was almost like a mandatory booby look or something for Amazon. And then they're all like, oh, the Fire Mother. And so they worship the woman from Shady Sands. Now they deified her. That seemed a little bit of a stretch to me. And it seems kind of weird that there's like two distinct factions inside there, but like some of them are mutated and some of them aren't. That's kind of weird. Well, maybe she could have had a tail she was hiding, I suppose, or I don't know, vestigial limbs. But all in all, I guess I might as well just get to the point here. All in all, I think that there's definitely some missed opportunities. There was some contrivances. The plot seemed very forced. And they keep going back to the Ghoul Cowboys past. And some of the times some of the times it's like, okay, it's like a reprieve from the wasteland, but it's like he's always in the past. Which maybe he is. But like after he finds out his wife is like Vault Tech. She's the rep. She's the one who's like, oh, let's start the war. That whole thing is like one of the biggest secrets in the Fallout franchise, is that Vault-Tec actually started the war. Like, she suggests it, but it's like, if you suggest it, then that means you're thinking about it. So, yeah. But all in all, as a longtime Fallout fan for 25 years now, I'm looking, wow, it's 2024, isn't it? 25 years. I would say that it's worth watching as a fan. I got really, really jammed up by all of the contrivances in the plot, though. I got very, very jammed up, and some parts were very hard to watch. I was concerned that that was going to be the case, but other parts were kind of fun and enjoyable. Sometimes I was laughing at the jokes as they're intended, and sometimes I was laughing because I thought what they did was a joke, and I thought it was wrong. So I mean, it's really up to the individual. But if you're a fan, you might as well watch it. I would still stick with a 6 out of 10 because there was a lot of borrowing from this show. Like, I got Game of Thrones vibes a few times, like very, very heavily. And then, of course, they borrowed from Fallout. Yeah, like the guy wearing the diaper that she runs into, like he's really dumb. And it's supposed to be funny, but it's like, how is he surviving without water in a desert? And he's like, I'm out of water. I don't know how to get more water. But I'm afraid of Philly, so I don't go there. It's like, then you're going to die, man. Like, how did you live this long? Like, that part is a mystery to me. Like, a dumbass like him would only survive feeding off the generosity of productive people. So, but there aren't any. Maybe he just recently moved in there, but he looked pretty dug in. But he's putting sand in the water filter, and then he's getting sand out of it. That's pretty dumb. So yeah, people like him really survive very easily in the wasteland. So yeah, I guess watchable. Each episode seems to want to be its own thing, then be everything at the same time. But there was a lot of contrivances, a lot of manufactured situations where they obviously said, this is our endpoint, how do we make this happen? And then they didn't really do revisions. It seems like what do you do? Hey, that's good enough. Let's just keep going. It seems rushed. I guess is the word. There were parts that reminded me very heavily of the Mandalorian. They were trying to get that vibe, like on that gunslinger. And the Mandalorian, the first season, I should probably do a video just on that. The first season was good for what it was. It was simple, it was kind of campy, kind of funny, goofy, and I think they tried to capture the same thing, the same vibe of the Mandalorian, but they kind of missed the mark, because you need to have actual technical part, there needs to be plausibility and realism to a certain degree. You can't just shove it out there and expect it to work. But like I said, Fallout, I'd give it a 6. It's watchable, it's decent. I really appreciate good plots. This plot was very chopped up. And it seems like the last episode is just supposed to make you realize everything all at once. And it's supposed to be like a real enigmatic kind of situation. And then what Lucy does, like she finds her mom. Her mom's cool, which when she seems reasonably conscious, but really damaged. And apparently her dad sort of got played off her and used it to open the other walls. It's like what happened, and then Lucy remembers, because one of the things she said actually was good callback.
she's like, I remember, I thought I was really outside with the sun. And they're like, oh, silly little girl, you were the whole time. And, you know, and then she remembers after she talks with the cold fusion scientist that she was actually at a boat. She left, somehow was able to leave, or she escaped, and then when her dad blew her up to get her back, that part, it could be because I was tired of being there, but the whole wrap up is kind of bizarre to me a little bit, like you blow up your wife because she ran away from you. That's kind of insane, dude. So it's like there's a lot of people trying to say they're doing a good thing, they're actually doing a really bad thing in reality. And I thought that was very forced. Like it felt very forced. And that, like people do this, they make excuses for themselves, and they say, oh, you know, it's okay to hurt. Well, they think it's okay to hurt these people, or they want to do bad things, and they make excuses for it. And it happens all the time. I mean, I've worked with people. I've gotten fairly close to some people, and I remember a guy sabotaged another guy's career. Like torpedoed his entire career, got him even fired. Blamed for something the other guy actually did. And he said, you know, I need to protect family. I can't lose my job. It's my responsibility. So, and it was actually his mistake. So we'll call him Family Man and the other guy. So Family Man, quote unquote, he did a whole bunch of stuff to ensure that he kept his job, and he was actually undermining people. He was causing problems. He was forging information. And I was a little surprised. It seemed like media gets off his chest, and people tell me a lot of secrets for some reason. Because, like, I don't normally tell anybody about them. Obviously, I'm not saying this guy's name or anything. Like, not gonna say his real name, but... And he thought he was so justified. He thought that there was nothing wrong with it. He obviously had some guilt. He said he felt no guilt. But he did. But then he just like, I just gotta get past it. Like, dude, just lied. You torpedoed a guy's entire career to save yourself from your own mistake. That you're not saving family. You're saving your own skin for being a lying sack of poop. Right? So that's like apparently we're the easiest people to lie to. We lie to ourselves easier than anyone else. And people that lie to themselves a lot get very good at lying to other people. Is part of thinking psychology where they just learn about lying. So, and lying is very dangerous. Like, a lot of people think, I just want to get out of trouble. I just want this person liking me so that I can move on. And then I'll be safe. And, you know, I'll tell them later. They never do. Unless they have to. And, like, all people are kind of lying in this show. The vault starts lying. Or like whatever. Lucy starts lying too. She's she's a moral character, or not full character, which makes sense. So, but I think they lean way too hard on that to get her out of trouble. Like she turns into a curiosity, like idiot kid that nobody wants to kill. They're like, I feel bad because I think you brain damaged. You know, it's more like that. She gets pitied. But I think that he goes way way too far. I don't know, but in general, it's quite a long video already. So in general, yeah, you're a football fan or you're interested in the franchise, get a very generalized look at the franchise. Sure. And you're already paying for Amazon anyways. The bonus is that doesn't have any ads. I don't know if Amazon still has ads on their shows. They had ads for second season of Reacher or something like that, and I was so mad. It was like what, I gotta pay $3 more to not see ads when I've already said, like, the whole reason I'm getting streaming is that I don't have to see ads. I don't want to see ads. If they had a place, say, these are new shows, you want to take a quick look at them, cool. If there was a separate spot when I want to watch a show, especially when I watch multiple in a row, you don't want to be interrupted. So that was another positive point, because there was not any ads in the show. So that made it more immersive, but yeah, you're exactly right. I have to say those six as well. Sometimes it wasn't that. But the set design, the visuals, everything, almost everything seemed to fit visually. The guns like guns game, armor like armor game. The power armor was funky. It didn't look like that in the suit half the time, but it's hard not to. But it's obviously like plastic or latex. It didn't have the right hat to it, and I guess the guy was untrained with power armor,
So it kind of made sense why he didn't really use it properly. But I don't know. In general, like, I might watch it again sometime, but I just kind of watched them all yesterday. I had a not busy night last night, so I thought I might as well. Ended up staying up a little bit too late, but we won't talk about that. And but in general, yeah, I'd give it 6 out of 10 caps. I guess we could use that rating system. So, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the review. If you guys have any questions, let me know. I know a fair bit about the canon, or if something didn't make sense, we could discuss it. But in general, we'll see how it goes. And I wonder if they're going to make a second season. I already got through the first season in a day because I'm an animal, but yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see how everything works out. Anyways, hope all of you brave wastelanders have a safe and enjoyable weekend. This is Wasteland Strongbeard signing off.